Ever think about it like this? The whole way we get what it means to be sick or healthy, it isn't just like, oh, that's obvious, common sense, right? Like,
Right.
it's actually built on a whole set of ideas, kind of hidden philosophy, shaping how we view our bodies and disease.
That's a really good place to start, I think.
Mm-hmm.
That's exactly what we're going to be looking at today. You're spot on. The way most of the world, especially like the West, thinks about medicine.
Right.
It isn't just a bunch of cold, hard facts.
Nope, not at all. And you, our awesome listener, sent in some amazing sources that really go deep on this.
Yeah.
So today we're diving deep, deep into the philosophy behind biomedicine,
Yeah.
uncovering like the core beliefs, assumptions that guide all that modern Western medicine. Not just medical discoveries themselves, but the whole framework we use to understand them.
It's super important to grasp that biomedicine is bigger than just, hey, let's apply biology to medical stuff.
Yeah.
Your sources really show that. It's a whole system, a set of philosophical commitments, a global force even, and the main way these big institutions see the link between biological sciences and medicine. It's like the foundation for almost all work in health science and technology.
Okay, so much to unpack here. Let's break down those core commitments a bit. What are the big ideas that define this whole biomedical thing?
Okay, so a few things pop out from what you sent. First, biomedicine likes to explain health and sickness through like physical stuff, biochemical things you can measure and see.
Yeah.
Second, experiments are king.
Mhm.
Lab research, clinical trials, that's how they get and check their knowledge about health. And third,
Yeah.
they kind of view the body as a bunch of parts and processes, reductionism, the main takeaway. Biomedicine loves what's tangible, what you can experiment on.
So instead of the whole person in their environment, the focus goes to like tiny biological bits and pieces.
Exactly. And here's the thing. While these ideas seem obvious now, they're actually pretty deep philosophically, and people argue about them a lot.
Makes sense.
We'll get into some of that pushback and look at different ways people think about health and disease, too, to broaden our view.
Sounds good. So first things first, we got to really define biomedicine. Seems like there are a bunch of ways people talk about it.
Right, you're right. One source, the National Cancer Institute, they basically say it's the same as all these terms: allopathic, conventional, mainstream, orthodox, Western medicine, like the standard approach. So at its most basic, it's just what's accepted medical practice in a lot of the world.
The classic doctor visit, pills, the hospital system, all that.
Yep, exactly. But then you get a wider definition, like what Clark and his crew say. They argue biomedicine is always changing, and it includes not just biology, but also ideas about moral duties around health.
Wow.
And this huge reliance on computers, data banks, all that. It's a big social and tech force. The key point there, biomedicine isn't just one thing. It's got a lot of sides, shifting boundaries. Different people see it differently.
That's way more than just Western medicine, right? Like ethics and tech are wrapped up in it too.
Oh yeah, big time. And then Krieger, she gives us a more philosophical view, laying out three main points of biomedicine when it comes to disease. First one, we've touched on it, disease is caused by biological, chemical, physical stuff.
Right.
Second, lab research and these randomized controlled trials, RCTs. That's the gold standard for studying health.
Okay.
And third, reductionism, understanding complex things by breaking them down. The key thing from Krieger, biomedicine works with a specific set of ideas about what causes disease and how we can study it best.
So whether it's looking at genes under a microscope or a huge clinical trial for some new treatment, it's all in line with these big principles.
Exactly. That's the argument. Now, your sources make a good point. Biomedicine is less a strict philosophical system, like some rigid thing.
Yeah.
And maybe not even a paradigm like what Kuhn talked about with scientific revolutions, where it's totally different rules for the game.
Yeah.
But it does have this incommensurability with other ideas about health.
Incommensurable, meaning they have different standards. Like you can't translate between them easily.
You got it. Think of like traditional herbal stuff.
Yeah.
To be accepted by biomedicine, it can't just be, while we used it for centuries, it restores balance.
Right.
Now, they got to analyze the chemicals, find active compounds, test it rigorously, all by biomedicine's rules. Those traditional reasons, kind of irrelevant. Different knowledge standard. Key point, biomedicine becomes the judge of what counts as health knowledge because it sets the rules of the game.
Makes sense. Like it's the gatekeeper.
Exactly. And in another way, one source says biomedicine is similar to what Lakaitos called research programs. These are like frameworks that guide scientific questions. Biomedicine kind of sets what questions are allowed, what arguments are okay within its boundaries. Like you can question how an experiment is designed, but you can't really say experiments are dumb, they're not valid.
Interesting. So where did this whole biomedical framework come from? It hasn't always been the main way to think about health, right?
No, definitely not. Your sources point out some elements were around earlier, but biomedicine, as this big global thing, is pretty recent. World War II is often seen as a turning point, starting this big biomedicalization. The key here, biomedicine's rise is a historical thing, tied to specific social and political changes.
What happened back then that was so important?
A few things came together. Public funding for medical research went way up in Western countries. Health insurance got bigger, covering more people, often with government help. And big pharma, they were booming. Tons of innovation.
So more money, access to healthcare, and the drug companies growing fast all at once.
Exactly. That solidified biomedicine. But, gotta remember, before that, and even today, there are lots of other health frameworks out there. Your source mentions osteopathic medicine, which started as a different thing focusing on the body's structure, but now it's mostly integrated with the biomedical approach.
Wow. So further back in Western history, what was the main way people understood health before biomedicine took over?
The Hippocratic tradition was huge for like over 2,000 years. Two big ideas there. One, methodological naturalism, basically no supernatural stuff causing disease.
Okay.
But funny thing is, natural back then included things we might find weird now, like astrology.
Right. Stars affecting the body wasn't like magic, but a natural force.
Exactly. And the second big idea, humoral theory. Health was all about balance between four fluids or humors.
Yeah,
Blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile.
I've heard of that.
They weren't just physical, they were tied to cosmology, elements, seasons, even astrology. Oedipus's pre-biomedical views were often holistic, the body connected to the wider world, even the cosmos.
So getting sick was like your fundamental fluids getting out of whack, and that linked to the universe too.
That's the idea.
Ah,
Totally different from biomedicine's focus on specific biological stuff. Now, there's this whole debate about like how much biomedicine actually improved health.
right. McEwen's argument, wasn't it?
Yeah, Thomas McEwen, in his famous work, he argued it was social and economic stuff in the West.
There.
Better food, sanitation that really boosted health in the 20th century. Not so much biomedicine itself.
Bold statement. Challenges the whole medical breakthroughs are why we live longer thing.
It does. And it's been argued about like crazy for decades. Some people debunk most of it, others still see truth in it. But like Krieger, the health theorist, she points out, trying to measure exactly how much is biomedicine versus social stuff is a mess because they're all tangled up together.
Yeah, can't separate antibiotics from better hygiene, for example. They go hand in hand.
Exactly. Biomedicine is woven into society, economics in the West, hard to isolate its impact. But Krieger also says that doesn't mean we can't find specific links between health problems and interventions. Just got to remember the whole web of factors.
Okay, so biomedicine has these core ideas about how the body works, how we learn about it. What about its beliefs on what's actually real when it comes to health and disease?
That gets into ontology, metaphysics, deep stuff. Your sources say, for biomedicine, disease is all about dysfunction in physical body parts, organs, tissues, cells. The key here, biomedicine is materialist. Disease starts in the physical body.
Very tangible, like mechanistic view of sickness.
Totally. And Lee makes a crucial point. Biomedicine works on this idea that only what you can sense or measure with tools is really real, which also means valid knowledge about health. Got to be through those empirical means. So they prioritize evidence you can see, touch, the data.
If you can't see it, touch it, measure it with some fancy tech, biomedicine's like, nope, not relevant.
You got it. This leads to what Broadbent calls biological chauvinism, basically, not taking non-biological causes of illness seriously.
So if it's not in the cells or the chemistry, it's not a real medical problem, kind of thinking.
Sometimes, yeah. While they can argue, hey, we built this huge successful thing based on that, it has limits. On the flip side, you have biochauvinism, which says there's something special about living beings that sets them apart.
Like the old life force idea, something beyond the physical stuff.
Yeah, vitalism, that's one version.
Yep.
Another is the phenomenological view, like Merleau-Ponty,
Yeah.
saying human experience is on a different level than just like an object. The point here, the contrast between pure materialism and saying living beings, their experience are special.
One chauvinism excludes non-biological. The other insists biology is unique, maybe immeasurable.
Exactly. Biomedicine kind of walks the line. Focus on biological processes, but got to be understandable through physics, chemistry, no spirit, no non-physical force. So biology is king, but got to be the kind of biology mainstream science accepts.
Like drawing a boundary. Biology, yes, but our kind of biology.
Yep. And your source even mentions the hard problem of consciousness. How do physical brain things create experience?
Right.
Same way, a patient is more than chemicals reacting.
Yeah.
There's lived experience, a wholeness that reductionist biology can't quite grasp. So biomedicine is great at the mechanisms, but the subjective, holistic stuff, the patient's experience, that's trickier.
That's deep. Biomedicine has come so far with how the body works, but there's still mystery about the individual, their experience.
For sure. And that takes us right into how biomedicine actually defines health and disease.
Okay, so if disease is broken parts, how do they define health?
One big idea aligned with biomedicine is Bors's biostatistical theory, BST for short. It basically says health is normal functioning, meaning statistically typical for your reference group,
Reference group.
like people your age, same sex, within a species. Disease is when that functioning is messed up. The point is, it tries to be objective based on stats, not feelings or culture.
So if everything's working like it statistically should for someone like you, that's healthy. If it deviates and hurts survival, reproduction, that's disease.
You got it. But this theory has gotten some pushback.
What kind of problems are there with this statistical health view?
One thing, like Kingo points out, is picking that reference class. Whose blood pressure are you comparing to? Same age, sex, lifestyle. The choice changes what normal, and thus healthy, even means. So the objective-sounding definition depends on who you're comparing to, which is subjective.
Makes sense. Normal can be different depending on the group you're measuring against.
Exactly. And Kruger says even if you objectively call something pathological, that doesn't tell you what to do.
Right.
High blood sugar doesn't automatically mean specific treatment or any treatment at all. Just a deviation doesn't equal a medical action guide.
Like seeing a blip on the radar, but not knowing if it's a threat or not?
Precisely. And your sources highlight this bigger issue, measuring overall health, well-being in biomedicine. How do you even assess how healthy a population is?
Right.
Philosophically, do patients even fully know their own health state? How do you get that info without bias?
Yeah, pain scales, 1 to 10, seems simple, but it's subjective. All sorts of things can affect it.
Totally. And this focus on biological malfunction as the core of disease has led to critiques of the medical model of disability and mental health.
Oh, okay.
They say it reduces complex experiences to just individual biology, ignoring social, environmental stuff. And it can be oppressive because the experts get to decide what those experiences even are.
So, difficulty walking, is it just their legs malfunctioning, or is it society not being built for mobility differences?
Exactly the kind of question these critiques raise. Even normal functioning becomes debatable, especially with disability. Some argue for a more pluralistic view, recognizing disability and well-being have a complex relationship, not a simple one.
Not just less ability equals worse life.
Right. And your sources point out social stuff can even shape what we call a disease. Drug companies, they love making new treatments, but they also love making disease categories wider. Pre-disease states like pre-diabetes and clinical trials, even though they're valued, can have biases that skew the results. So what counts as a disease isn't just biology, it's economics, social forces too.
So what's a disease isn't a fact of nature. It can be molded by money, society.
Exactly. Last thing, it's interesting, this tension between biomedicine's disease focus and the World Health Organization, WHO's definition. Complete well-being.
Whoa, that's way broader.
Yeah, they started broad, but in practice focused on diseases for practical and political reasons. Basically, managing diseases was easier than dealing with this huge well-being idea.
Makes sense. Focusing on specific diseases, less political mess than trying to achieve total well-being for everyone.
Likely. So even basic stuff like health, disease, turns out it's complicated. Different philosophies play into it, both within and around biomedicine.
So fascinating. Now let's switch gears a bit. How does biomedicine know what it knows? What's their take on evidence gaining knowledge?
This takes us to epistemology of biomedicine.
Okay.
Your sources show that even within biomedicine, their debates tell us a lot about this, especially with evidence-based medicine coming up. Yeah. The point here, the methods biomedicine uses to learn and check knowledge, those are argued about, they're refined all the time.
EBM sounds simple, just using evidence, right? What's the controversy there?
It's trickier than the name suggests.
Okay.
Nobody's saying ignore evidence. The fight is about which evidence is best and how to use it. Think of like a simple backache.
Yeah.
Years ago, doctors might say, take ibuprofen, heat, exercise. based on their experience, what they learned.
So treatment was based on general knowledge, plus the doctor's own judgment call.
Exactly. 20th century medicine, they relied a lot on what experienced doctors agreed on. Each doctor had freedom in how they practiced. EBM tries to be more empirical. Randomized controlled trials, that's the big thing. Patients randomly get different treatments. Outcomes are measured. Then they combine multiple studies, these systematic reviews, meta-analyses, to make guidelines for best practice. The shift is away from just expert opinion toward analyzing data from well-designed experiments.
So data trumps authority, essentially.
Ideally, yeah. EBM came in like it was a revolution, totally changing how medical knowledge works. But that caused a big debate, supporters versus critics.
What was the main disagreement about?
It was about the relationship between the two big parts of biomedicine. Basic science and clinical medicine, right? Basic science loves experiments, finding trends that apply to everyone. Clinical medicine is more about the individual patient, the doctor's experience. Each case is different. EBM wasn't just biology taking over, but saying, what even is good science in medicine, and how do we use it for patients? So the tension is between research findings that apply broadly and what each patient needs, their specific context.
The general rules versus the messy reality of treating real people.
You got it. And philosophers have really dug into EBM, questioning things like, hey, these summaries of evidence, are they oversimplifying?
Hmm.
Is there bias hidden in the data analysis? Can you even do EDM in every clinic? Then there's a worry about drug companies funding research, influencing those RCTs. So even an objective-looking method has its own philosophy, its limits in practice.
Nothing simple, huh? Even how we get medical knowledge has all these layers.
Exactly. And within EBM, there's also this dynamic about expertise itself and experimental data.
Wait, I thought EBM was trying to reduce how much we rely on experts.
It is, in a way. Back in the day, guidelines were often made by what they called go-be-sat, good old boys sat around a table. Basically, top experts talking it out, consensus. EBM moved away from that.
So guidelines based on data, not just whoever's the big name in the field?
Yep. But even with experimental data, you still need experts to interpret it, to decide how to turn it into guidelines. So expertise is still there, its role has changed, and people are still arguing about what clinical expertise even is, how much it matters compared to research. So EBM is about data, but human judgment is still crucial for making sense of that data.
It's not replacing experts, but making them justify their opinions with solid evidence.
That's a good way to put it. EBM definitely has its favorites. RCTs are gold standard, meta-analyses even more so. But even EBM acknowledges open-ended critical inquiry. So there's flexibility, willingness to change based on new findings.
Okay, what about basic science, lab research, stuff that's not directly on patients? Where does that fit in?
Bench science, they call it. That's a tricky one. In the EBM hierarchy, it's often low down, like finding a substance kills cancer cells in a dish. Doesn't mean it'll be a good treatment in a human. So EBM is super careful about directly applying basic science to patients. Got to have human studies too.
Makes sense. What works in a controlled lab might not work in the real world of a body.
Right. But this lower view of bench science clashes a bit with translational medicine, the whole effort to bring lab stuff to the bedside.
Wait, so if the goal is new treatments based on lab findings, wouldn't you think lab science is super important?
You'd think so. And that's why some folks, the EBM plus group, they say traditional EBM went too far in ignoring the mechanistic side, like understanding how something works biologically. They want us to rethink how important that is, alongside clinical trials. So there's this tension, how much weight to give to understanding mechanisms versus just seeing what works in patients.
Finding the right balance between knowing the nuts and bolts of disease and seeing what treatments actually do in the real world.
Exactly. And moving past types of evidence, there's the whole thing about measurement in biomedicine.
How do they usually go about measuring health, disease, all that?
Both EBM and other parts of biomedicine love precise, objective measurement.
Makes sense.
Works great in the lab, but gets hard when you're trying to measure like well-being, how healthy a whole population is, social factors impacting health. So that ideal of perfect measurement bumps into the reality that health is complex, holistic.
How do you put a number on well-being? That's got to be tricky.
It is. Philosophical issues, practical issues all over the place. And critics say, be careful, the researcher's own choices, their values, can sneak into the measurement, affecting the results. And it's not always neutral.
Like what you choose to measure and how you measure it can really change the outcome.
Totally. And then there's this critique that focus on objective numbers, especially in EBM, might actually push out the patient's voice in their own care.
Interesting.
Focus too much on the data, you miss what the patient wants, their goals, their values. That's an ethical issue, and you might even lose knowledge because the patient's perspective matters too.
Almost like the patient becomes a data set, not a person making decisions.
That's a big worry. And to make things even more complicated, there's this meta-epistemic problem. Doctors aren't always taught how to deal with uncertainty. What do you do when the evidence is weak or doesn't perfectly fit the person you're treating? That's a skill they need because perfect guidelines don't always exist.
So in a field that loves certainty, numbers, dealing with the gray areas is a whole other challenge.
Definitely. Uncertainty itself is sometimes like
Yeah.
the elephant in the room during medical training. Okay, let's talk about another big part of biomedicine's philosophy, reductionism.
We touched on that before, breaking things down to understand them. How does that play out in how they approach health and disease?
So in biomedicine, there's this strong tendency to think of medicine as just applied biology. Patients are basically walking chemistry sets, medical knowledge is fancy biology.
Mhm.
But some folks say it's not that simple. It's more like biology and medicine aligned historically, rather than being like the core philosophy of biomedicine itself.
So they're super intertwined, influence each other.
Exactly. And there are different kinds of reductionism even within biology, so how they overlap with biomedicine varies.
Makes sense.
The argument for reductionism is that it works. Finding specific genes for diseases, that's powerful.
Yeah.
So pragmatically, it's been a useful tool for research explaining things.
It's led to huge progress in some areas, for sure.
Oh, yeah. But reductionism gets criticized a lot, too. Some people say you focus so much on tiny parts, you miss the whole person. Their experience, social life, mental state, all that. It becomes this cold mechanical view. The body's a machine.
Instead of a person, it's just organs and molecules.
Right. And EBM, with its focus on RCTs, can accidentally make this worse. It often assumes you can isolate and control things in health.
Okay.
But in reality, you don't always know all the factors affecting a study. And when you focus on what's easy to measure, you miss subjective stuff, like mental health, which is hard to quantify.
So we're looking at what's easy to count, but missing parts of the patient's experience that don't fit neatly into numbers.
That's a key point.
Yeah.
While some people want a more pluralistic approach, reductionist and holistic views working together, the power of biomedicine as an institution often means reductionism wins out.
Which brings us to the point that biomedicine isn't just ideas, it's a huge influential system. How does that shape its philosophy and how it's actually used?
Right. The whole debate about what's good and bad about biomedicine is tied up with Western culture, politics, economics, all that.
Right.
The West has a lot of influence. That's spread biomedicine globally.
Right.
Like how biomedicine works in rich countries versus poorer ones. That shows power dynamics,
Yeah.
inequality. So the philosophy and the practice, you can't separate them from this power, this global reach.
It's not just neutral science, it comes with baggage. Historical context matters.
Totally. One source talks about biomediatization, how the media and biomedicine work together to shape what people think about health. And there's this strong argument in books like Against Health that biomedicine has gotten too influential culturally. It makes health into a moral thing, which can stigmatize people.
Like being unhealthy becomes bad, shameful, your fault.
Exactly. Think about fat shaming and whether it's ever okay as a public health tactic.
Yeah.
There's also the critique of self-care, which can sometimes put all the burden on the individual,
Right.
like just eat better, but they're living in poverty, no access to good food. So biomedicine can make health problems into individual failings, ignoring the social causes.
Telling someone to just be healthier when they're dealing with huge systemic problems, that's missing the point.
Exactly. And historically, biomedicine has been part of colonialism too.
Whoa.
It messed up local medical systems, made people dependent on Western knowledge. This brain drain thing,
Right.
skilled people from developing nations go to richer countries. That's part of it. So biomedicine's dominance isn't just because it's the best science. It's about power, inequality, all tangled up.
So much more to it than meets the eye. So this has led people to look for alternative frameworks, right?
Yeah, lots of them.
Okay.
Your source notes that some critiques focus on parts of biomedicine, but some offer totally different ways of thinking.
Right.
Like Foucault, his work on biopower, biopolitics, it's a big critique of how modern medicine can dehumanize
Okay.
and how it's linked to power structures. Illich's medical nemesis is even more radical, questioning the whole point of modern medicine, saying it might cause more harm than good. So these are big challenges, going after the assumptions and goals of biomedicine itself.
Wow. Questioning the entire system, that's huge.
It is. And beyond critiques, there are whole alternative healing practices, each with their own philosophy.
Like traditional medicine systems.
Exactly. Biomedicine lumps them together as complementary, alternative, or integrative medicine.
Right.
But philosophers point out, especially with EBM, it's a tough spot for these systems. They got to either follow biomedicine's rules for knowing, or they get called unscientific, useless. It's an unequal playing field.
So they gotta play by biomedicine's rules to even be taken seriously.
Pretty much, yeah. One source talks about classical Chinese medicine, CCM, as a system fundamentally different from biomedicine. They have this thing called process ontology, basically. The relationships between events are more important than just static things.
Yeah.
And a holistic view, everything's interconnected.
Yeah.
So it's not about isolating diseases, specific mechanisms. It's about energy flow, balance in the whole system.
So instead of focusing on isolated diseases and biological mechanisms, it's about understanding energy flow and the overall balance within a larger interconnected system.
Yeah, that's a simplified version, but gets at the difference. Things like acupuncture, herbal remedies, and CCM, they come from this big picture view. It's interesting, CCM with its balance and change focus, it kind of rhymes with epidemiology and ecology. They also look at complex systems.
Huh, hadn't thought of it like that. What about other traditional systems?
Ayurvedic medicine from South Asia, also about holism, balance.
Okay.
One big difference from biomedicine is they really personalize treatment based on your constitution, not just everyone with this disease gets this. And it's deeply connected to Hindu philosophy. So these systems offer totally different ways of seeing the body, health, healing.
And they have their own ontologies, what they think exists, and their own ways of knowing, their epistemologies.
You got it. And beyond those traditional systems, there are more humanistic approaches within medicine itself, offering alternatives to just the biomedical view.
What are some of those?
Narrative medicine, coming from the medical humanities, it says the patient's story is super important. Doctors got to listen, really understand what the illness is like for them, to give good care. There's debate on how central narrative actually is,
Yeah.
but the patient's perspective matters. Then there's phenomenology, the philosophy.
Right.
It helps medicine by taking seriously how illness changes your whole existence, not just the physical, mental symptoms. It's about what it means to be a person embodied in a specific place, active in the world. So bring in the patient's experience, their story. That's valuable.
It's about seeing how they live through the illness, not just their diagnosis.
Exactly. And lastly, there are approaches like gentle medicine, which is about less intervention, more conservative treatments.
Yeah, okay.
It comes from this idea that a lot of medical interventions aren't even that effective. And the population health framework, that's a big shift. Away from individual care towards fixing the social stuff that makes people sick. Clean water, good food, safe housing, those are the main drivers of health, not just doctors and hospitals. It changes how we think about health, not just about medical stuff, but social and economic justice too.
This deep dive has been incredible. It's clear now how we understand health and illness is way more complex, way more philosophical than we might realize.
Yeah, for sure. And it's crucial to remember, like your sources have shown, biomedicine, even though it's dominant, it's built on specific choices. Choices about what's real, how we know things, what health and disease even are.
So for you, our amazing listener, we hope this exploration has sparked some ideas. Think about how these assumptions, these philosophies might be shaping your view of health, how you deal with the healthcare system, maybe even your own views on different healing approaches.
Yeah, think about it. What are the limits of just focusing on biology when it comes to illness? What might other frameworks, other ways of seeing things offer that biomedicine might miss?
Asking these questions can give you a richer, more nuanced understanding of medicine and even your own well-being.
For sure.
And the next time you hear about a diagnosis, a treatment plan, take a second to think, what's the philosophy behind this? Maybe there are other ways of thinking about health that could give you a more complete, more meaningful picture.